And the next talk is going to be about ENS. A lot of people don't know this, but ENS domains are ERC 721s. And there's so much that you can do on top of this thing. And Makoto is here to tell us about the possibilities of ENS and how this fits into the broader identity world in crypto. So without further ado, let's welcome Makoto, and I'll let you take it from here.
Okay. Hi, Kartik. Thank you for introducing us. And I'll just gonna start now. Can you hear me okay?
Everything is great.
Cool. And let me share. Okay. May I start?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So hello everybody. So yeah, this is about ENS, and I just wanted to do a quick introduction. And in the Ethereum world, we have something called like Ethereum wallet and address. So according to in kind of on-chain world, I'm known as 0x5A3A4227 blah blah blah. But obviously, no one remembers. So we have ENS for that. Hence, I have a well-known ENS name called Matoku.is. My real name is Makoto, but yeah, in the Ethereum world, I am Matoku.is, and I'm a developer at ENS team, and yeah, I've been working in ENS team since 2018. And today, I want to talk about. So it was a grand vision. It was a title my colleague Bradley put, and he unfortunately had some like flight schedule change, so he can't give his grand vision. So this is my interpretation of the grand vision. We as a ENS team, we kind of share the same vision. And yeah, but like because I kind of watched ENS to kind of start, and they just kind of flourish. So I wanted to quickly like recap how it came where we are right now. And also like we have a kind of new vision. Like we used to say like, because ENS came heavily borrowed from the name DNS, domain name system. So we keep thinking, yeah, we are the kind of internet Ethereum kind of name service, which is almost like a domain name system. But we kind of start self-realizing that it would be more than that. So we start telling ourselves as a Web3 username. So I want to kind of start talking about that transition. And that journey just started, and we need to build a lot of stuff, and we also need a lot of help from you guys. So I want to just end my talk with like, where is the area we have to focus on and how you can help. Okay. And so the humble beginning is that, so back in 2016, this was June 9th in London. So ENS, the idea of ENS was kind of invented from the guy called Nick Johnson. He is a founder of ENS, and now he is in New Zealand, but back then he was in London. And incidentally, I got into Ethereum back in 2016, about the same time as Nick got in, and I went to the first Ethereum meetup back in April, and when I went to the third meetup, Nick was actually presenting about ENS. Interestingly, if you look at the June 9th, I think this was the time he was about to join from, I think he used to work at Google or somewhere. Then like he decided to join Ethereum Foundation as a guest developer. And 10 days after this, the DAO blows up. So the DAO, the original DAO, who raised like 150 million, and it got hacked, and then 30% of the ETH got like drained, that kind of stuff. So his first job was to basically rescue the Ethereum. But at this point, he had no idea what's coming. Me neither. And what at that time, I don't know how many people were there when Ethereum, that time. But we had that vision as a Ethereum as a whole. That vision was the world computer. That whole thing is about the Ethereum. We use, we are the one who kind of compute all the world things, do something. And we also had some idea of like kind of triangular system. That Ethereum is a computer, then you also need a storage system, which was Swarm. Swarm is basically very similar to IPFS for the distributed storage system, and but like it was kind of it integrates natively to Ethereum. And also there's another thing called Whisper, which was a network system layer, which is not really actively developed, but I think Status is taking over the idea and doing something called WASU or something. But Swarm, so as part of the Swarm, because Swarm had a kind of content ID, which is a hash of basically the content you want to upload, image or like all the stuff. Then obviously they had an issue, also they had the issue of like, very like machine friendly but human unfriendly name. So when he started, I think he was having the idea of ENS, and the first use case was let's use it there. So that was a very, very starting point. But yeah, at that time he just joined the Ethereum Foundation, and he was kind of doing on his side of while maintaining the Go Ethereum client. And about a year later, made the force. Actually, I think he initially tried to launch in the 14th of March, which is a Pi Day. But as soon as he launched, he hit a bug, so he had to retreat, and he did another launch back in May. May the Force. That's easy to remember. May the Force be with you. So that was the actual launch. And on this kind of tweet, it says like, it's one of the, I think Kartik said like, yeah, ENS is one of the NFT project, and it's actually one of the kind of oldest non-fungible token, May 2007. So this was kind of months before even the CryptPunks was born, and like the standard 721 didn't even exist. And during that time, it was a kind of peak of so-called ICO, initial coin offering, and there's lots of companies doing, raising lots of money, and it was the first time Ethereum as a community hit the like network spike that whenever people do, I think Brave did, the browser did a token launch on like, I think about the same time, and then during that time there was a huge spike. So what we did Nick did kind of interestingly is like because the name based on that, I think certain like I think if it's a hash of the name or something, he basically kind of spread the name release mint period over the 3 months. So if some names can be minted auctioned like on this day, whereas the other name is this day. So, and because spread over the 3 months, just so that we can prevent people just jumping into one specific moment. So that was, I think it was quite innovative in a way, like even it was like 4 years ago, but he was already thinking about how to make sure like it's not gonna collude the network. So I wish like more NFT projects actually do something like that. But yeah, so some names are actually like minted, auctioned off during even before the CryptPunks was minted. And 180,000 names were auctioned over 3 months. And another interesting thing is it was a so-called Victory auction that like first highest bidder paid the second highest bid. So like some of the name people bid, the highest bid was East Phoenix, which was over someone bid for like 200,000 East. It's a humongous amount, but that actually like no one bid as high as it. So I think that person only paid like 0.01 ETH or something. Whereas something like a dark market, open market, it was more like many people bid. So that's actually the price that they acquired, which was about 20,000. It was a lot, but in total, I think 168K is at that time it was about 50 million. Now it's probably like over $500 million. It's quite a lot of money. But the thing is, I think it was the first time people kind of saw the opportunity similar to the kind of .com boom. Like people just like squat on it, just holding it, and it was designed to make it easier because it was more of the locked system. So you put the deposit, and you can only while there's a deposit there. But like if you want to release the name, you get the money back. And the reason behind he did it is that because he was a kind of Ethereum registrar, he didn't know how all things works. So he wanted to make it temporary. And if something happens, worst case scenario, people can get the release the name and just get the money back. So like I think it was more of a safety mechanism. That was the initial design. But again, like that auction was through like 7 days auction. So like it was very, very difficult to basically like for every name, even after the 3 months period, every time people wants to buy a new name, people had to wait like 5 days to like kind of bid and then rebuild that kind of stuff. So that was really difficult. So in 2019, after 2 years, we actually did this so-called permanent registrar, where instead of like depositing the money to kind of get the name, we decided to more similar to how DNS naming system works. Like you pay fixed amount for a certain year. So that's kind of 2019, and then like that was basically 2 years ago. But it was even after the transition, it was kind of growth wasn't really it wasn't really growing. So this is a growth of the monthly registration period is that like it was going somewhere between like 1,000 names to 5,000 names a month, except the spike of November. That's when we released the short names, which was between 3 to 6 characters. But so in 2020, there's a DeFi summer, and in 2021, we became NFT summer, and people realize actually ENS is also NFT, and also like another thing is like when people start seeing like an ENS name as on the kind of OpenSea and stuff, people start realizing, oh, this is more not just normal like JPEG. It has some utility. So we finally start getting kind of momentum, and this is where we are right now. And yeah, let me go to the next slide. Yes, so from domain to Web3 username. So I just briefly mentioned it. Initially, so ENS started as a kind of some of the utility functionality to help the visual world computer. And the architecture is heavily kind of inspired by the DNS. So like we have a kind of so-called domain name system. It has a name, but it has a hierarchy, right? So .eth, the top level domain. I have matoken.eth, and you can also have a notion of subdomains. So these are very similar to how DNS internet domain works. But one thing I later found out, I think when we were all in the Twitter space about talking about like OGNS, and then Brantley, my colleague, was asking to Nick, like, how did you come up with this so-called reverse record? Is that instead of, so normal name, you map matoken.eth to direct 1 to 3, but there's a notion called reverse record. If you purchase .eth name, and if you go first thing after registration is done, it actually prompts you to set something called reverse record, where you can basically select your primary name, which associated to your Ethereum address. That's what we call a reverse. So in this example, I have multiple names, like I am matoken.eth or matoken.gitcoin.eth, and I can associate which name represents my Ethereum address. By doing that, now if you go to somewhere like Uniswap, you can, so if you connect the wallet to that app, they use a reverse lookup to see which name represents this Ethereum address, and they show it to you. And this is a convenient way, especially if you have multiple addresses. You don't want to mix up which address you're trying to do swap tokens and stuff. That's useful for yourself, but that's what Nick said. Like, yeah, he just kind of added as an afterthought. So because he kind of had the afterthought, it's kind of actually quite hard. It was one of the hardest things to set after you purchase ENS. And even now, I think still like only like somewhere between 20 to 30% of people names have reverse record set. So not everybody using it, but for people who uses it, it's very convenient that you can almost using as a login system. And it's not just Uniswap. For example, OpenSea. OpenSea, you can actually look up your name using your Makoto.is. But like if you look at the artist page, in this case, it's a people pleaser. So people pleaser picked people pleaser as a username in OpenSea. But if you go to different like NFT platform, it might not be necessarily available. So for example, my Facebook username and the Twitter username not necessarily the same. A Gitcoin is the only one I was able to secure Makoto because I was early, but you can't have a kind of consistent username. Whereas if the market, some NFT marketplace uses connect with Ethereum address, you kind of share the same Ethereum address, then it suddenly becomes a portable kind of platform agnostic username. That's where people start discovering, and it even become more useful when about 3 months ago, OpenSea integrated this reverse record feature, so that now if you go to Etherscan and see transaction, you can start seeing that like from where to who it's sending the basically sending transaction. And this is a Etherscan is the address of Pleaser DAO, which is formed around like purchasing initial purchasing people pleasers Uniswap art, but now they formed its own DAO, and you can see like Jamie's and Andy are doing something. Like it's almost showing your own chain history. That's now it really becoming ubiquitous. And one thing we didn't really expect people do is like people started putting into not just for Web3 system, but we started putting Web2 system like Twitter. Like Nick said, Nick is one of the first person who did this because that was his creation. Then I think that was about 2019 or 20. Someone like Vitalik started doing, and then now like so many people. If you like search .eth on Twitter, there's so many people doing it. It's just becoming. It doesn't really prove anything, but like it's almost showing your kind of, hey, I like work, live, and breathe in Ethereum world. People start becoming just a convenient method to starting tying as your Ethereum identity. That's where it start coming like this is not something I'm just guessing what Nick was thinking. I don't think Nick really did expect that this is going to happen. And another thing, what's happening is we have in the structure. So this is a smart contract of the ENS system. You don't need to know everything, but so ENS is like huge phone book, like where there's a name and there's a phone number kind of stuff. But rather than that, this is called registry. But the registry doesn't actually hold your Ethereum address, but it also just has a pointer to something called resolver, where you can kind of customize what to show and how it show. And primarily when we started, majority of the use case was to show Ethereum address, but you can actually set something else such as IPFS content hash or like Swan content hash, which I show as the primary use case, and also just random text record. And that's so like this is Brownlee's ENS page, and he basically puts everything, his entire life is in basically on chain, and that's how he's using text record. And then with this base construct, I think about a couple months ago, that was Zappa started showing the profile photo to their website. But it's great, but like I don't know exactly where they store this NFT association information. So we just said like okay, why don't we just the text record doesn't stop, like you can actually put any key and value, but we just said like let's come up with a format so like you can share. If you store once in ENS, you can basically should be able to reuse in different dApps. So we just integrated a very basic version. Like so, this is if you look at the text record page on your ENS name, and if you say avatar, and you can put like it says EIP 155 colon 1 is a net chain ID. So if it's mainnet, it's 1. If it's Polygon, 137, that kind of stuff. Then you pick it's either ERC721 or 1155. Then the contract is basically collection equivalent. Contract address is basically equivalent to collection, and the 2430 is a token ID. By putting this kind of format, we as a basically this ENS manager page can actually go into chain and to see not only to see which image it represents, but the programmer can also program to see who owns it. And if it's owned by this ENS name, I can even put the flag to say this NFT is actually owned by this ENS name owner. So I can put something like owner label. So this is another thing we started adding. Like we didn't even have it until 3 months ago, but we started doing it. And I think there's a couple team already started creating avatar NLP and like JS library, and he's going through like so many dApps to integrate. So I can see that this is coming to many dApps very, very soon. And so this is a kind of alpha leak Brantley did, I think, about 2-3 weeks ago. So we are almost transitioning into almost like a social network, or like basically showing your online on-chain identity. This is kind of new vision we start realizing, not just that we had it back in 2016. It's very hard to predict what's going to be 4 or 5 years afterward, but we kind of watched how users are using ENS, and this is a transition we're going so far. Okay, so I think so this is, by the way, this is still a mock-up. We still have a month away to actually implement it, but not just the UI change we need still a lot more. So this I mentioned, like, this was a kind of, the left side was the kind of vision in Nick 2016 to this is a vision of like the new kind of direction we are going into 5 years later. But one of the hurdle which didn't really exist at that time, but now exists, is a scaling issue. And how do we need to tackle and how you can help solving this problem? I'm going to spend next like probably 2-3 minutes. So this is how much gas you have to spend to register ENS name, and until DeFi summer hit, it was literally one of the cheapest NFT to buy. That like registration only cost $5, and it used to cost only less than $1 on gas to register. But now ETH price went 10x, and the gas price went like 50-100x. So now you start seeing that when gas is cheap, probably it still costs like $20-30 worth of ETH on gas, and then when gas is very expensive, it's going to go 100. I saw that like a few weeks ago when Root and also went nuts. There's a 6,000 gas way, and I saw that someone spent about $2,000 just on gas. That's crazy. So we kind of have to sort it out. And the obvious solution is going to basically L2. And we have Nick proposed some framework called Durin, which is kind of general purpose off-chain data retrieval mechanism. And there's a diagram, but I wouldn't explain this because you don't probably understand if you don't understand the architecture of ENS. But the visual representation is that what we're thinking is like so registering .eth name will remain on layer 1 very long time, and we are not at the state to choose which layer 2 is a winner so that we should move. But what we want to do is we want you to pick the layer 2 you want to have your data associated. And we have a way, that I mentioned like resolver. So resolver is something that another smart contract to decide how to resolve your name. And currently it's just directly returning data. But what we want to do with this Durin model is let resolver point to some web services where it returns the data. And most of the L2 relies on security or on the L1. That means there's a way to prove the data on L2 to be in L1 to be able to verify, because they anchored all the data back in L1. So we have a way to, we know there's a way to do it. And so what we want to do is, if you have matoken.is, you want to change the resolver to point to specific L2 and retrieve the data there. But this is still, I think, highly advanced thing. What we really want to see is dApps, or we want dApps to point their resolver to their choice of L2. So like if it's Uniswap says, let's say, hey, we issued a subdomain to all the users on Optimism, so that user don't have to buy the name, especially the new user don't have to buy the registered name on L1, but rather just use subdomains under their favorite app. And if like DYDX wants to issue subdomain, they are already in Starkware, so let's issue the subdomain Starkware. And we have a ways to people update data on L2 of their choice, and they should know how to do it because they already use the app. But we have a unified way for people who's not on L2. If you want to look the app for example, foo.dydx, we have a way, we came up with some ways to basically read the data through this Durin framework without you switching MetaMask to change the network all the time. So this is kind of idea stage. We have a proof of concept, but so that means how dApp adopt this new layer 2 system and integrate it becomes very, really key. And we currently have 286 dApps who already does like some level of integration, but we really want them to start paying attention what's happening, what we want to go to L2. And the easiest way, if you manage one of these dApps, or if you are building something for like ETHOnline hackathon, after I think week after, actually following day of the ETH Global Hackathon, we are having ENS workshop for inviting the builder and the developers to talk about all these technical aspects. And I think we'd like to invite some the people who are hacking and who hacked with ENS to kind of present in the end of what you achieved and all those stuff. So if you are a builder or if you're hacking or something right now, please apply for ETHOnline workshop. But I mean, this talk is aimed for non-technical people, so I am aware that not everybody's fits for this workshop. But like one thing you could do is, for example, is a CryptPunks Lava page. Have a CryptPunks page, and which has a now link to resolve who owns the punks, and it shows the ENS name. And I had from the Discord conversation that there is some community member in a CryptPunks Discord channel. They kept pushing to the Lava guys to integrate, and after he pushed so much, they finally added it, and now it's getting one of the most traffic to our site. So what you could do is like, just if you have a favorite app, and if you are the DAO member, and if you are active, please propose to integrate with ENS. And also, like if you are not an active member, the first community to maybe join could be the ENS Discord channel as well. Like, so we are very, very bad at community management. Like we were very, very small team, but now Alicia.is joined the ENS team, and she's doing fantastic job, like managing all the Discord members. So maybe just pop into ENS Discord channel, just say hi, and just show off your Twitter with your ETH name. So that's probably the easiest thing you can do to help ENS to kind of get more integrated with different dApps, and it becomes more useful as a username. It's really, username is only become useful if everybody else uses the same way we represent their username, and we hope that ENS becomes the one. That's about it. So ENS workshop, you can check out more detail on the Medium page. please follow ENS Domains Twitter and don't join Discord and just join our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Makoto. We don't have a lot of time for too many questions, but just two recurring themes that showed up, and I'll try to see if we can get them sorted quickly. First one is for the layer 2 integration, what does the timeline look like for people to be able to make their ENS changes on the L2? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's still early, to be honest. So we already have a kind of working example in Optimism. So Nick did it with just like on its own, and I just was working on porting that example using the Durin framework. So that's there, but still, I think for Optimism they are also doing the network relaunch, right? So I think it's not ready to deploy immediately. So it's not next few months, to be honest. And also it's not just the platform support, but also we need to have a support on like something like EtherJS, web, the library and the MetaMask, all the tools. So again, like I think we want to make next workshop to be the place where people can discuss about what other dApps are ready to adopt, even, so so it's not too soon.
Soon. Another sort of one big theme here is that from the diagram you showed around how the layer 1 ENS can let people spawn different usernames on different layer 2s. Does that mean people can have a different username across different ENSs on layer 2, or does that mean like the identity will still be preserved and the same username maps into just it seems to be a lot of confusion.
So I mean, kind of ENS is non-fungible, whether it's ERC 7211 or not. So if you have one name on L2, for example, if you have one name in Arbitrum points to different address and another name in Polygon or like Optimism pointed to different address, you can't basically look it up. What we want to do is like, I think that one we're still thinking, but what we are kind of thinking is probably there are two ways. If it's non-ETH name, one thing we didn't discuss is like you can now use like .com or .xyz using so-called DNS Oracle. That one basically you can prove. So I think so it becomes so that resolver on L1 dictates which name it points to. So whichever, like if this resolver says this name I'm using Optimism, whatever the name is resolved in Optimism becomes a canonical one. So you may have something else. And then if you do that, and if you then say like, oh, actually I'll do in Arbitrum, you could have, it may have the same name on the different chains, but it's the L1 which decides which ones it points to. So it's always one.
Great. Well, hopefully that clarified the questions from the audience. And Makoto, thanks again for doing this talk and being part of the summit.
Thank you.